Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester, and thank you for joining us for episode 162. Tonight, we'll give you our player and match analysis of Wolves 3-0 pumping away at Leeds United. We'll also discuss Jeff Shee's new director position at FC Sportswear Limited. We'll also talk about the pre-show survey we did regarding next season. Will Wolves be Leicester City? Will Wolves be Ipswich Town? Somewhere in between. We'll also take your questions and look ahead to next week's game against Tottenham Hotspur. Delighted to be joined by our club captain, Mark Knock, and welcome back once again to Nui. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday show. Straight to business, lots to talk about. Knocky, your take on this week's hit of misery as it was Leeds United 3, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0.
Oh, just everything was wrong, wasn't it? I've tried to be balanced when it comes to Edwards. I've tried to look at the bigger picture in terms of what he inherited. He didn't create the situation that we were in, but he inherited it. And I think there's mitigation around what's happened during his tenure. But I cannot and will not defend the last two performances. I thought that it was utterly atrocious. It was players not trying, not fighting, not working. I didn't understand the system. I mean, and the lineup, we just lost 4-0 comfortably to a relegation rival. And he puts out the same team with the exception of a player who was suspended, an injured goalkeeper, and he keeps the same system.
Enforced changes.
Yeah, the enforced, that's all he did. And that was never going to work. And I tweeted before the game, which is always a dangerous thing to do, that I didn't think that system was going to work and we didn't have a chance in hell. It seems like the only person who thought that system would work is Edwards, and it was just never going. So you're up against arguably the most physical team in the league, and you're pumping balls up to Adam Armstrong is 5'8", Angel Gomez is 5'6", and Jean-Rick Bellegarde is 5'7", and you're hoping that's going to stick and get you at the pitch. We were pathetic. I mean, we could have been a goal down in the first 20 seconds. They broke our lines easily. We could have been a couple of goals down before they actually scored. And when you look at the goals, the space we gave them, we were second to the corner, we were second to the second ball, we didn't pick up the third ball. We were just standing off them and letting them play through us and letting them play around us. And they look like an established Premier League side, and we look like a bit of a plucky League One team going there in the Cup. It was so easy for them. I mean, that's up against a side that haven't actually scored at home since February the 6th. And we go there and we give them 2 goals in the space of, in terms of game time, probably 40 seconds, which is exactly what we did at West Ham. So we're not learning from our errors, we're just repeating them. If you do something once, it's a mistake. You do something twice, it's a choice. So to be making those same mistakes repeatedly, the substitutions are wrong. We were crying for Tolu to come on, so we wax on Hwang. There's just, I think the most frustrating thing was after the game, his interview, and the thing that really stuck with me is that the boys are with it, was a comment he made. What are they with? We've just played 2 relatively poor teams, and we've lost 7-0 over the 2 games without laying a glove on anyone. It's just utterly...
It's not funny, but you're just saying it, I've got to laugh, because if I don't, I'll cry.
But he's coming out and saying we've got to keep fight. Where's the fight? I haven't seen any fight. If you're going to go down swinging. And I have defended him because up until sort of the big break we had, we were okay. I think we were 7th in the form guide. We'd lost 1 out of 6. So you're thinking we've turned a corner here. But the last 2 performances, that's as bad as anything we've seen all season. That's as bad as Vitor Pereira's first few games. That's as good as when Edwards first came in and we were struggling. That was abysmal, what we saw yesterday. And yeah, we might have rallied a little bit in the second half, but it's easy to play when you're 2-0 down and the game's gone. I think there's a lot of players there who were hiding. There's a lot of players who didn't want to engage. You've got players like Krejci, who's been great, feigning injury. You've got Gomez throwing himself to the floor for the second game in a week. It was pathetic. I think those players should be embarrassed to put their wages up based on that performance. It was a disgrace.
So I'll put you on the fence for that game then, Knocky. Nui, what's happened? Why is it so different? You look at there was a little bit of luck against Liverpool in the league game, but it was a win. Wolves were the better side against Aston Villa. So these players in there somewhere, there is some ability, because you don't win those games by fluke. Now, I said at the time, you can't keep running your way to victory. But now Wolves don't look like they're running as much. They're nowhere near the same side that beat Aston Villa and Liverpool.
I think, not to give them any excuses, but I think obviously the break didn't help. Didn't help things. We were kind of on a run. I'm not going to say it was a decent run, but we were, probably the best that we've been all season. And then kind of we've come back out of this, and I don't know whether the break has just kind of given all of those players an idea about what's going to come in the summer for them, and that they can just kind of chill and put their feet up. But yeah, the last two games has just been an absolute joke. I mean, to lose ultimately, two really important games if we were going to turn it around, if there was a glimmer of any hope of us turning it around, those were the two games that we needed to do something, and they've gone down without a whimper in both the games. Conceding goals, like Nocky said, really, really in quick succession. It's laughable, and like they don't look bothered. But I think the most concerning thing for me is Edwards defending the performances when he came out yesterday, and he was kind of. Basically everybody said to him, it was a terrible performance, and he was like, it wasn't a terrible performance. It was okay. I'm like, what are you watching that's different to the rest of us? There's no fight. There's no fight for a second ball. Once they lose it, they're just like, whatever. They're not getting back. They're not doing anything. It was an embarrassing performance, and I can't put my finger on what's changed other than the fact that I think that they've just given up the ghost, and they're quite happy to just stroll to the end of the season now and accept their fate.
Great start, Nui. Nocky, what is really strange to me is I really want to like Rob and I want him to succeed, but I want to sort of dig down a little bit more in his post-match interview. Now, understandably, you're kind of going to be defensive. I think we all would in any interview. I think that's natural. So you have to cut in some slack. And I always think it's hard to gauge after you've been slapped 3-0. You've been asked, we've had the same interview with radio, with TV, and then with written press. You're going to be a bit upset about it. But to be coming out and saying, oh, the penalty kind of sort of made the scoreline worse than it was. I watched the highlights back again now just to make sure I wasn't seeing things. Wolves could have been 2-0 down before they scored. And that was in like the first 10 minutes of the game. So again, we mentioned it in the group chat, Nocky. It's always a concern when the managers start talking like this because they've clearly seen something very different to the majority of the fan base.
I don't mind him defending his team. A manager should come out and defend his team. But they would point face-to-face lies telling us that they're working hard, they're battling, they're trying. I mean, Jackson Stewart is probably the fastest player in the league. And you watch the Okafor goal, he just watches him. He doesn't sprint. He doesn't put his head down to try and get back. That's not a player who's trying everything he can and working, and he's still with it, as Edward says. So I don't think there's anything wrong with coming out and defending your team. But when you lie to the fan base, Wolves fans aren't stupid. We know the game. We've been relegated enough, and we've seen enough poor versions of our side to know that when we're working and when we're not working, we've got a decent understanding of the game. So when you come out and make the kind of comments he's making, you're just further alienating the fan base because you know that it's not true and you know that you don't believe him. It's just frustrating. I just want him to be honest. I mean, there was a great interview with Eddie Howe and the clip of the press conference where they asked him if his players are still on side, and he took time to think about it before he answered because he's been honest that probably not, which is why they're sat 13th, 14th in the league. But for Edwards to say we're still at it when we've won 3 games all season, we failed to win in 30 matches in the Premier League, and the players are still at it. I don't like those kind of comments. I'd rather he came out and was honest about the performance without slaughtering his team. I think you get a little bit more from the fans if you do that. But when you come out and just barefaced lie to us and try and make something happen that wasn't there, it's the wrong thing to do. And he's already splitting the fan base, and I think we already know he may be at the point of no return now anyway. But things like that just make things 10 times worse.
Yeah, it doesn't help, Nui. The previous game, you've been slapped 4, you've been slapped 3. And I'm sure we'll talk about this again because there's some great questions about Rob again. But this was literally a nothing to lose. Well, you could lose a little bit more credibility, so that's probably not true. But we've gone there again. You've changed nothing, right? You've not laid a glove on West Ham, and you've gone to Leeds with the same forward line, playing it across the back, left, right, and then wanging it long for 3 guys under 5'10". Now, I don't call myself a master tactician, but I know if you're playing away at Leeds and you're lumping the ball to some sort of meaty centre-backs who are between 6'2" and 6'4", you've got no chance. What's Rob saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even, where you're going. You need to think that Ellen Road is obviously quite a hostile ground to go to as well. He needs to bring that into his thinking as well, and to not change a thing, not have any height up front, lumping the ball forward. It was pathetic, like all around. But I just think that there's not enough coming from any of them, and I can understand why players like Tolu are annoyed and left the bench and walked down the tunnel early, because why would you want to sit there when your gaffer clearly isn't seeing what you're seeing, that there's nothing being created, there's no openings, there's no height, there's no strength, there's no want to do anything. It was just pathetic from back to front. I felt bad for Bentley, to be completely honest, kind of coming in. He's done nothing wrong. He's been thrown in literally at the deep end. If it wasn't for him, as Nocky said, we could have been 2-0 down early doors. And actually, I thought he was unlucky for the Ampadu effort before the rebound obviously led to the opener. But yeah, I don't see any kind of drive from these players. And skipping ahead, but seeing the videos of them coming over and getting a round of abuse from the fans at the end was thoroughly deserved, to be completely honest. Literally went down without a fight. Literally.
Nocky, we can take losing because it's football and it's sport, and if we won every week, we wouldn't be here. If we lost every week, we wouldn't be here. We go because of the jeopardy and the fun and the moment like we had at Villa Park together. If you lose 4 or 5-0 and they've given it everything, example, losing 6-0 at home to Southampton, it was a freak result, but being in the South Bank that day, you were there, you were part of it, and you were like, well, you know what? We've played all right today and we've been absolutely battered. That's not happened the last 2 games. Now, the interviews that Rob gives say something else. I don't see that. Now, I'm not particularly seeing that across media either. People are talking about Wolves fighting and going, I don't see that at all. I see it's making me push myself further away from some of these players. I know you said you couldn't care less if none of them stay. After seeing this now, and people went up there in their thousands, costing hundreds of pounds for a day out. You expect just for your 90 minutes, leave it all out there. For me, the levels have dropped to an unacceptable standard. Now, I'm not really one for abusing my own players, but if you're going to put on a performance like that at full time, expect to be on the receiving end of it, because it's just simply unacceptable.
I think I've spoken here before and said that there's acceptable ways to lose football matches. There's games that you can come away from even if you've been beaten. Thought, there's not a lot we could have done about that. That wasn't an acceptable way to lose a game. That was a collapse. That was a fold. That was a not being willing to engage the opposition. That was standing off players because you don't want to be that guy that gets caught out. It was weak. It was a weak performance. And we come back to the Matt Doherty conversation quite frequently on this podcast about cowards. That was a performance of utter cowards. That was players who just didn't want to get involved. I mean, you're giving it to your supposed playmakers in midfield. They couldn't get rid of the ball quickly enough. The only player I would say, there's probably 2 players who come out with any credit, and that's Dan Bentley and Adam Armstrong. So Adam Armstrong never stopped running. And we've shown that if you give him service, he'll put the ball in the back of the net. So I thought the goal that was disallowed was an exceptional finish. But we don't feed him. We just watch him run around, and then we decide to recycle the ball, go backwards, and then eventually Totti will get bored and thump one 60 yards into the stands. It's just there's no purpose to what we're doing. I think if you can look at a way you're playing, you can see what they're trying to achieve. You can kind of buy into it. We went with a system that had seen us get obliterated at West Ham because the system wasn't going to work. We left ourselves too open in the wide areas. We narrowed the midfield to the point where we were kind of just making it clumpy and there's too many players around the same areas. Your midfield, your wide players are exposed. West Ham hit us down those flanks time and time again. We repeated exactly the same thing against Leeds, and they murdered us down the wing areas. And you've got players like Okafor with pure pace, and you've got Arneson who likes to pull out wide, who I think is a really good player. You're allowing those players to play because you're not stopping the space. So to go into it, and as soon as you saw that lineup, you knew we were going to get beat because we had nothing up front to hold the ball up. We had no pace in behind. You weren't going to be able to get your wing backs into the game because of the way they play. It was just all wrong. I mean, how Rodrigo Gomez or Pedro Lima aren't getting starts over Chichua, I'll never understand that, because he's pound for pound the worst wing back I've ever seen at Wolves in terms of what we spent for him. He's utter garbage, but he's starting every week. That's not mitigation, as we spoke about earlier, for why we're in the position we're in. That's a choice from the manager. He's making a decision to play these players. Angel Gomez, £100,000 a week. One of the worst midfielders we've had since we've been back in the Premier League, and yet we're playing him, and he's powder puff. He's getting knocked off the ball with a good gust of wind, and he'd get blown off the ball. So there's so many stupid decisions that we're making. But it's not the fact we're making them, we're continuously repeating them. We brought Tolu on against Brentford. He scored one and then hit the crossbar, could have won a game for us. He hadn't had a sniff since. So I just don't understand how you can make these errors It's not like you're looking at players for next season either, because Gomez ain't going to be there. Andre's not going to be there. Angel Gomez isn't going to be there because he seems to think he's better than the Championship. You're not going to have those players. So play your best 11 now. And there's no reason he couldn't have maybe gone to a 4 at the back. Maybe he could have gone to 2 up front. He could have done something different. There's absolutely no reason for him not to have done that. If we win 6-0 against Leeds, we're still going to get relegated. So why not do something a little bit different and have a bit of a go of it? But we didn't. We just went there, rolled over and got our tummies tickled. And we were out the game within 20 minutes, which is just completely unacceptable.
Yeah, this is episode 162 of the Wolves Report with Kieran Newey, Mark Knock and myself, Ryan Lester. As always, we broadcast our show live. You can catch up on YouTube, Spotify, X, Facebook. Please give us a like, a follow, a retweet. It would be much appreciated to keep growing the show and taking it forward. Really interesting message come up here, and I want to bring it onto the show. I mean, there've been rumblings of this, but Judah, I'm guessing he's talking about Nathan Judah, has just said Tolu had a bust up with Mane against West Ham in the dressing room, got quite physical, apparently. Now, if that is the case, that would probably make sense to why Tolu didn't start and Mane didn't start.
Who gets in a punch up with Tolu? Who in the right mind would try, especially Mane? He's about Angel Gomez.
First of all, then, all right, let's give some credit to Mane because that lad's got some bollocks on him because that guy's a punter. But this would explain the both of them not starting. So what I would say to that, though, just thinking about it quickly, if that is the case, what's the point of having them on the bench? You either punish them by not putting them in the squad, or you draw a line underneath it and bringing it forward. That game was crying out for Tolu. It was absolutely crying out for him. Now, we're talking about a guy that's been in and out, but let's take our minds back to a month ago. He came on at Brentford and we nearly won the game. He was unplayable. Incredible header off the bar. I think we hit the post as well. They could not live with him. Now you brought him on the bench in a game we're absolutely desperate and he's getting nowhere near it. I mean, Jonah, thank you for bringing that up. I've not seen Judah's tweet, obviously, because I'm doing the show, but it certainly makes for interesting reading. I'll try and find out some more. Okay.
What's the issue with them getting a bit physical? Surely you want to see that from your team. Surely you want. I mean, I don't know the context behind it. Obviously, you might have made a comment about his mum for all I know. But if I want to see players getting stuck in. I want to see players angry about where we are. I want to see people. I want to see players frustrated and angry. What's wrong with having a little bit of fisticuffs? Get them both in the team and make them play off each other.
I just want to know what was said, now, especially if it was a mum joke. I want to know exactly what that was.
Well, we need to know that, don't we? We need that exclusive on the Wolves Report. I mean,
you don't make a mum joke to Tolu, do you? Not 6'7" bounding at you.
I mean, at least we've had a laugh about Wolves again, anyway. But yeah, I'll try and find out some more. I'm sure we'll find out some more as news goes on, because if that has happened, and obviously Judah's still connected to the club, I'm sure we'll find out more and more going forward. But back to the game and less about the mum jokes. I'm not sure that's something I ever thought we'd talk about on the Wolves Report. Nui, that opening goal, bit of a scramble, got to do better. It's a brilliant finish, but Wolves are getting peppered. It's just going to come, isn't it? There was almost a feel of inevitability that, you know what, they'd almost looked like they accepted they were going to concede soon.
Well, I mean, it was from the first minute, wasn't it? Again, just a terrible start from kickoff. Just absolutely terrible, just absolutely peppered, like you said. And if it wasn't for Bentley, fair play to him coming in and pulling off some decent saves to kind of start and kept us in it. And I think like I said, it was the Ampadu effort, decent save before the rebound. But I can't give Bentley any knocks really for kind of what he did. I don't think he made any real kind of mistakes. He had little chance with any of the goals. So yeah, nothing too bad to say about Bentley. Like I said, just feel a bit sorry for him kind of coming in and having to deal in that kind of situation. And the trouble is when you've been slapped in the week by West Ham, the players aren't going to have it in a long season that's been peppered with terrible decisions and lots of other really bad things going on. The defense isn't going to have any kind of confidence. So for him to come in and do that, no knocks from me.
Yeah, Nocky, the second goal again. I mean, from a player who was captain, who I don't think even should be in the team in the Championship, incredible athlete, but a very limited footballer. it's a dreadful ball to give away, and I think it falls to Okafor, and before you know it, it's 2-0, and that's the end of that. It's just such another soft goal. You don't mind if someone puts a 15 pass move and blunders it in the top corner, but just to be giving away sloppy passes when you've just scored, it's unacceptably low poor standards.
It was a pass he didn't need to make as well. I mean, he does this. You sometimes think he's put his legs on backwards the way that he passes a ball. He's so clumsy with his distribution, and you give the ball away in that area, your fullback's out of position. Chichura, as we've said, doesn't bother closing in on the one most dangerous player they've got, which is Okafor. We just watch him run in and tap it in. And it's similar to the first goal when you're giving a player an overhead kick, 7 yards from goal. That should never happen. You should be close enough to stop that from happening. We weren't close enough to their players. And it's a decent ball into the box, but he had all the time in the world to pick the cross and simple tapping at the far post. But again, 2 self-inflicted goals in the space of probably 40 seconds of actual playing time. You're just not going to recover from that when you're in the situation we're in.
Yeah, just before we go on to the third goal, interesting point from Dale here, commenting from X. If that happens, Edwards should be honest with the fans about it. I think there's too much of this in football. I think, let's just be honest, because when these kind of things come out now it's going to escalate. Obviously, people are going to try and find out more, and people will be talking about it. Just be honest. Just say, after the game, there was a bit of a dispute, there was a heated dispute with the players. We draw a line underneath it, we move forward. Because then you've cut it. Now, it looks like you've got a secret. Well, what more happened? Who else was involved? What was said? Well, let's not talk about that again. But I think Dale makes an excellent point. If we're looking transparency, just be honest, because it's our football club and our business. Was someone out of order? You know what I mean? Was they pressed? Was there lots of, who knows? But I
do and don't agree with that.
Go for it.
I think, from if there are things that are happening inside the dressing room, then for me, it should really stay in the dressing room, and it's ultimately down to Edwards. He lives and dies by the sword, doesn't he? He lives and dies by his decisions. I think there's too much transparency sometimes between kind of what goes on and us fans wanting to know absolutely everything that goes on behind the scenes. At the moment, it's just a rumor. Like, let's be honest, we don't know whether it's true, and rumors don't start from nowhere. But I do think that. I don't think he can win if he comes out and says, yeah, there's been a bust-up between Tolu and Mane.
I don't think he has to do it. I think the club could put a tweet out of social media
maybe.
Saying, like, address. I mean, you could just say, addressing questions of like an in-team dispute at the end of the game. Some players had heated exchanges, all matters resolved there. It doesn't even have to be Rob. I just think that then stops what we're doing now. And now there's like, well, why are you covering it up? So, yeah, interesting debate anyway. Dale, thank you.
I think Newey's made a good point. Players need to be safe enough to unleash a little bit without it getting out in the media. I think the problem we've got now is the world we live in with social media and everything else. It's very difficult to keep things like that under wraps. So I guess it's the question of, do you hope it doesn't leak, or do you try and get ahead of it? And should Edwards come out and say, look, there was a bit of a bust-up, but we've dealt with it internally now. The players are angry, they're frustrated, they want to do well, they're annoyed. You'd probably be all right with that. But at the same time, you want players to be able to vent and have those frustrations and feel safe to do so. So I think you're both kind of right, really. It's whichever way you go, potentially can cause you a problem.
Yeah, but you know what? It's just another long list on the things going wrong at Wolverhampton Wanderers. And I'm sure someone's made the joke already, but if only we had that much fight on the pitch as we do off it. But there we go. This is episode 162 of the Wolves Report with Kieran Newey, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. Drop us a follow, drop us a like, drop us a tweet. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Let's finally go through, just quickly go through the team. I don't think there's a real lot we can really do with this is the guys, but I think Rob Edwards did say one thing correct, and I don't think it was a penalty. Now, they tend to stick with the on-field decision. I thought it was more of a tangle than a penalty, but the problem is now VAR is encouraged to go with the on-field decision. Is he unlucky there, Newey, or is it a penalty?
I think it's a penalty, to be honest. I think when there's a tussle like that, I think it's only going to go on. He's waiting for the touch, isn't he? So yeah, it is a penalty to me. It's another case of
he didn't need to do it.
It's not even bad luck. He didn't need to do it, but yeah.
Nocky, I'm guessing your answer is going to be, if that's Wolverhampton Wanderers, I'm absolutely screaming for the pen.
100%, that's a penalty. If he's the wrong side of him, he's tried to get through any kind of contact, he's going to hit the deck. I think that's a penalty every day of the week. All
right then, Rob's wrong on that one as well. Let's go on to the team. Now, there's no point going through the team because I think we can pick out more bad players than good. But looking at them all out there, I'm probably going to say Dan Bentley and Adam Armstrong are the only the two guys at the opposite end of the pitch that come away with any real credit. Is that harsh on anyone else, or is that about right, gents?
No, I thought Krejci was a disgrace. I thought Tolo was dreadful. Santi didn't hit his usual levels. Andre Gomez were hiding. Jackson, Jesus Christ. Hugo was one of his poorer performances. I think they were all poor. Armstrong run his legs off. But, I mean, look at what he's got behind him and around him. There's no service there for him. Bentley didn't do anything wrong other than that. I thought they were a disgrace.
But I knew it was going to be a bad day for Santiago Bueno, Nui, when that through ball hit him on top of the head when he doesn't know where it was. And you're thinking, that's our most composed defender, and he went downhill from there. But, yeah, I don't know what...
I think he was anonymous after that, to be honest. There was nothing there, and we weren't threatening up the top. He was just going missing at the back. It was kind of felt every single time that they were onto us, they were cutting through with ease. Jackson, I'm not even going to bother talking about, to be completely honest, because everything that he was supposed to live up to has just been completely put in the wash. Like, there's nothing there. There is no player there for me. You know, maybe it's that he's come into, you know, a team that's struggling, and yeah, we are. But you know, that's a time for me to kind of stand up and show where the pace that he's supposed to have. Not seen that on any occasion.
Well, Okafor was having fun with him, and
yeah,
what's happened?
I'm not surprised that he was replaced at half time. I think he's been one of the biggest frustrations for me of the season. You know, and I don't necessarily want to call out, you know, players separately, but you know, for a player that kind of had a lot of hype, it's just not really been there. I thought Krejci was just made bad decisions again. Not sure what happened to him with his neck, like with that push. Like it would be easy for me to say that, you know, was he just fed up? Was he just, I can't be bothered with this anymore? Like,
if he was, he'd be the second one of the day to do that, wouldn't he? So,
well, yeah, exactly.
It felt like that though, didn't it? It felt like that when you see it. There's not enough for a big strapping lad like him to go down like that. And he'd had a bad game, hadn't he? He'd been caught out, he'd been bullied all game. It felt to me like it was a way out.
I mean, again, obviously we don't know, but when it looks like that, it's not a good look. And maybe it feels worse because we've been slapped 7 in a week. But those guys that went away on international duty or had their break, the guys that went away they've come back completely different people, whether there's moves been sorted, whether they know their futures, whether they know something about the manager. But whatever's happened, guys, that group of players are not the same set of lads. The mindset's different, the attitude's different, the application's different. I don't think the talent's changed because I do think there's 1 or 2 good footballers in there. But what I would say the most about that starting 11, Rob's not giving them the best chance. He's not doing his best. He's playing the same team that failed in the same system the week before against another relegation-threatened team. Play it along the back and then pump it to those 3 up front. Angel Gomez came on at Brentford, sat in front of the back 3 and dictated the play, keeping it going, ticking it over, bang, 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 bang. Now he's playing further up. Jean Rickner looks lost. I like Jean Rickner, but I don't know what's going on. Adam Armstrong, running. But if you're not giving the guy any service, you've got no chance. So
just what a quick point on Armstrong as well, though, because obviously he is that one player that's kind of come in, absolutely knew what he was signing up for, and is the player that's kind of showing, you know, that he knows we're going down. He knows that he's going to be here next season, and he wants to be at the front line, you know, kind of giving his all. And fair play to him for doing that, because he
looks like a captain.
Yeah, he does. And actually, that was going to be my next point. Thank you for taking that out of my mouth. But like, I actually can see him, you know, doing well for us next season and potentially leading that kind of reset. And you know, he sees the potential that we've got there. He's obviously been told by Rob and whoever else is around that there's something there. So you have to give your dues to Adam Armstrong in at least trying to do something and trying to get something. And actually, let's be honest, his finish was beautiful. Like, even though it was just that slight little bit offside, what a great finish.
Yeah, the guy can clearly finish. We saw, I mean, we're saying, well, his goal ratio is really poor. Well, we don't give him any chances. But look at his finish at Brentford. Look at the disallowed goal on Saturday. Put him in front of goal in a good team. That guy's 20 goals in the Championship next year. We just need to find now 10 more players to go around with him. This is episode 162 of the Wolves Report with Kieran Newey, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. I think that's probably enough for the Leeds game, isn't it, gents? Any more closing comments on that?
No, it's gone on longer than I hoped, to be honest.
I do. I'm not going to comment on that. No, there's an open goal there, isn't there? But I'm not going to do it. Now, there was a tweet that went out last night that made a really fascinating point. And it just so happens that Newey's on the show. A tweet from the Argo Puck says, well, looks here, you, she, as a director of FC Sportswear Limited, aka Sudu, who are heavily involved at Wolves, as well as being a director at Fosun Sports Group Limited with a correspondence address at Molineux. Now, Newey, I'll let you take the floor with this one because I know it didn't really bother a few people, but I'm in the same boat as you. And I think this is more of a concern and a red flag to me. Newey.
Yeah, so obviously we all knew, and perhaps in this tweet it could have been made a little bit clearer that we already knew the second point. We've known from when he left that Jeff, Yushi, whatever you want to call him, I'm sure there's other names that we could call him, was going to be a director at Fosun Sports Group. And I think a lot of us were, although it sounded a little bit iffy, we were given every single promise that it was nothing to do with the football side. And actually I still believe that could be the case. However, doing a little bit of kind of digging around and hearing a few rumours over the last week or so, on top of obviously seeing that Jeff is in Birmingham for gigs, I think it's obviously asked a few questions around, how involved is he still, and kind of what is he doing? And then to see that on 17th of March, he was appointed as a director at FC Sportswear and Retail Services, aka Sudu, aka Levy Merchandising, aka Compass Group. They trade under lots of different names. It's just brought up a few questions for me, and a few people, perhaps are absolutely right that this isn't something that we need to be concerned about, and that maybe he is just behind the scenes. But for me, we were told that he was nothing to do with Wolverhampton Wanderers, but that was in January. Maybe that was the case back then. There's definitely a question to be raised around what is Jeff's involvement with Wolverhampton Wanderers, because Levy, merchandising, Sudu, retail services, whatever you want to call them, are very heavily involved at Wolverhampton Wanderers. It's not just the kits that they get involved. They look after the whole retail operation. Everything that goes through the club shop goes through FC Retail and merchandising services. Every bit of hospitality is kind of conducted by them. All of the catering that's done at Molineux, it goes through those guys. So they have much more of a say. And I appreciate that that's not the football side of things at Molineux, but it's still a very, very strong part of things that are going on. And if he's still involved in those kind of decisions, who else's ear is he still in at Molineux themselves? And that's my biggest concern. Maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree here, but it's definitely a question that I want answering around what is his involvement. Why is he suddenly a director at Sudu, who are our kind of main kit manufacturer, and everything else that I've just explained? What's going on?
And they're owned by the same company, Fosun, so we're under the same umbrella. And we, as far as I was concerned, we were categorically told that he was nothing to do with Wolverhampton Wanderers anymore. But now, if you're a director, I would argue that the business that Wolves work closely with the most, then this raises massive concerns for me. Again, I'm with you. We might be barking up the wrong tree, and people say, "Oh, you might be spouting negativity." Well, we're talking about a man who I personally hold responsible for Wolves' demise. Granted, I could look above him and say, "Fosun should have acted sooner. It's on them." Well, Jeff Shee brought some great times, but Wolves have been on, as Nocky says, an incremental decline for the last 5 years, making bad decision after bad decision. And the last thing we wanted, after sort of having a change of guard at the top, was to have the person who many hold responsible for the damage that's happened to the club back in a position where he has influence. I'm with you, and I'm happy to speak to anyone that can answer the questions properly. I've got to be honest, Newey, I'm really concerned. I know we've spoke about this sort of off air as well, Newey, but Nocky, I was keen to get your take as well on this.
I'm not overly fussed, if I'm being totally honest. I think is it a business decision that you put him in there because he probably knows more about the football side of things than most of the people you could put in that position. So maybe
I'd argue that's not true, but
maybe it's a business decision around the direction of the kit sponsor as opposed to anything else. I think I'd be concerned if it comes out that he's still got something to do with the football side of things and he's having a bit of an impact on that side. If that comes out, then I think I'll be concerned, but I'm not happy about it, but I'm not particularly bothered, if I'm being totally honest.
I think that the reason that I'm and that tweet that's just come up, that comment is exactly the way that I'm feeling. That the bloke does not deserve to have any input or anything to do with Wolverhampton Wanderers. We've got rid of him, so why are we welcoming him back in any single capacity? For me, he is the reason for Wolves' downfall. We've just started to mend some of those bridges around, some of the communication that's come back with the fans and everything that the club are looking to do with like the fans forum that's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. I think that's absolutely brilliant. For them to do something like this, and it just seems a really, really silly business decision for me, because if he is head of Fosun Sports UK, which is the other company that he was appointed at in March 2024, then that's absolutely fine, because Fosun ultimately will own the rights to all of those other companies that are going on there. Leave him there, let him be director of that. That's absolutely fine, and it doesn't cause any issues like this. For them to then put him down as a director as this company that are still having an awful lot to do with everything that goes on at Wolverhampton Wanderers. Let's be honest, they're going to have a say in how much money we make on the kits, if anything, how much money we're making on sponsorships, if anything, what they're going to do around the betting. That's another conversation for another day. I think people are naive to think that, him being a director at this company is just a small little slight. For me, it should ring alarm bells for a lot of people, and I'll definitely be kind of questioning the people that need to, because it rings alarm bells for me. But maybe I am barking up the wrong tree, and I'll be happy to be proved wrong if that is the case. But I don't think that I am.
I mean, we've all been really damaged. Like, we all love our football club, and away from our families and our friends, Wolves are one of the most important things in our lives. It's why we do what we do. It's why we do this podcast. It's why you do Old Gold Pack. It's why me and Nocky chew people's ears off that anyone listen to here every Sunday or Monday night. It's what we do. Now, I don't understand it. Now, I'm not really a business savvy person, so that's fine. But if I was Sudu, I wouldn't appoint public enemy number one to my biggest client. Now, that might not be bothered, because that might be Wales now, because it's reported that they've got the Wales kit deal as well. Who knows? I hope they've got a better deal than Wolves anyway, or whatever that was. Maybe not. But anyway, I think it's an absolutely crazy move, and I understand and I respect your opinion on that, Nocky, but I don't want Jeff Shee anywhere near Wolverhampton Wanderers. I don't want him having any say. I thought that relationship was completely gone, and this raises massive concerns. Now, again, this may split opinion, and I can see some of the opinions coming through. I'm not happy about it, and I want to find out more, because this feels like a sleight of hand to me, Nui, and I feel like we need to know more about it, particularly what's happened over the last few months.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more I can say about it until I know a little bit more and do a little bit more digging around, what it is, why it is, and ultimately what his say in all of it is. For me, it just seems like another really tough pill to swallow in a relationship with Sudu that I think is already kind of being questioned by fans. But ultimately, I think if a lot of fans were to actually know that, Jeff Shee is heading up Sudu, how happy are they to put money into the shirts, into the kit, into everything? I'll be honest, like, I stopped, and obviously I'm going to have my reasons for wanting, with with our 150th anniversary kit coming out. But this, the shirt that we're doing isn't anything against kind of Wolverhampton Wanderers, and it's not anything. It's celebrating the 150 years of our town and of our club. But since there's all this stuff come out about kind of Fosun and Jeff, I've really, really struggled to justify putting my money into buying kits and to doing all of that and putting money into the club shop and everything else that's going on. So yeah, lots of questions, lots of things to kind of find out.
I think it's only fair that we ask for some clarity on that situation, because there's been a lot of damage done. There's a lot of hurt, and I think lots of people will feel the same way as we do. I don't want that person who I blame for a lot of the damage of where we are now anything to do with the football club, and I think that's a fair ask. When we were told that was the case, now this feels like a sort of little different direction on the sat nav, and there's a different way in. Not happy about it.
I think just to kind of defend their point though, back in January when we had that meeting with them, that was the case back then. So we can't literally say that that we've been lied to, because that isn't the case.
No, I never.
But something's changed. Something has changed.
We definitely didn't say that. But something has changed, and I think we're well within our rights to ask for some clarity on that, because it's a massive concern, and I think it's a ridiculous marketing move, because it's more than made up my mind for what I'll be doing, because I don't want no association with someone that I feel like has done that to our football club. But this is episode 162 of the Wolves Report with Kieran Newey, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. We asked a question before the show, if I get my cues out. Positive or worried? Are Wolves more likely to do an Ipswich Town or a Leicester City next season? We'll be debating this on tonight's Wolves Report at 8 p.m. with Knocky and Newey. I've spelt my name wrong there, or is it the club? So I can understand at the moment these answers. Some of you may not, but Knocky, is this where you're at the moment? I mean, we're all talking about the budget. Matt Jackson talked about they expect Wolves to be a heavy player and one of the favourites, and we should be pushing. But this isn't really, in this sort of survey, reflected in the fan base, is it? It appears that people are really concerned about us going forward.
I think Leicester's a difficult one to compare us to, because they've had a points deduction and genuine financial problems. In terms of us being an Ipswich, I don't think so. I mean, I think we need major surgery. I think you're talking probably 10 players in just to make us anything like a stable club, and I think we're going to lose the majority of our players. I don't believe you can do a rebuild of that magnitude and be competitive in the same season. I just don't think we can do it. So whoever comes down out of West Ham and Spurs, I expect them to win the league relatively comfortably. So I think that's one of the spots gone. I just don't expect us to be in that race for the top two. I think playoffs, as they're going down to 8th, is probably realistic for us. I hope we're nowhere near the relegation zone. I don't want to double dip again. I don't think we will be, but I just don't see us challenging for those top places based on the amount of work that's going to have to be done. We've won 3 games all season. We haven't got the quality of players in that we need. We've got Armstrong, who could do well in the Championship, but I think the majority of those players, apart from him, are all going to want to go. So then you've got to find replacements. You've got to bring them in. Knowing the way Wolves do business, I expect us to go into pre-season with probably still João Gomez, probably still Andre, because we'll want the most amount of money that we can get for those players. So we could be in a similar position of a bit of a trolley dash late on, bringing players in, trying to clear players out. By the time you've bloodied the squad, you're nibbling at November, December time again, and until you get something settled in terms of an 11. So I just don't think it's realistic for us to challenge with the amount of work we're going to have to do, although I'd absolutely love to be wrong.
I think the pressure's on, Newey. I think if Wolves don't get promoted next season, I think the damage that's done that we don't know, I mean, I'll be happily corrected wrong, but what's happened behind the scenes? What other things have happened? What's going to unfold as the funds get less and less? What's it going to look like? Because I certainly didn't expect Leicester City to come down and be getting points, fine after points deduction. We don't know what's happened at Wolverhampton Wanderers. Their books may be in order, they may not, but it's concerning. It really is concerning, and that's reflected in this survey. So I kind of get it. It's a weird situation. I'm worried, but I think if run correctly and operated correctly, other than Spurs, who are probably going to come down with us, Wolves should be one of the favourites to go up next season.
I completely agree, and obviously there's the hope there that will be the case, and that we will be able to compete. And the promises that we were given is that we're going to be a strong player in the window, and that we're going to be looking to push to do everything to kind of get back to being a Premier League club. as possible. But as we said back then, actions speak louder than words. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens. I think the Wolves fan in me isn't confident that that will be the case, that that we will be kind of up there and fighting. I think the most important thing for me is that we are back within 2 seasons. And I think, as Nocky said, this summer is going to be a little bit of a rebuild, reset. I don't think that you can put together a squad that's going to be capable of those automatic positions within that time, based on the players that are going to be going. And maybe this is just the negativity that's kind of come from the last couple of seasons of us kind of flirting with relegation to kind of where we are now, and not necessarily seeing us run in the right way. It concerns me massively that we're going down without a whimper right now. There's obviously lots of questions behind the scenes. There's obviously Nathan coming in and promising lots, and I hope that everything that he said is true, and that we are going to start to kind of see those buds kind of coming back through. But there's a huge concern that we'll be up there. I don't think it will be as bad as kind of Leicester's. And look, we've been there before. We've been in this position before, where we've gone down and then gone down again. And ultimately, we were a terrible team back then, and we were run terribly as well. I'm just really, really hoping that doesn't happen, because another double dip will be disastrous for us. And I wouldn't want to think about the position that we would be in, or whether even Fosun would still be around. Maybe that's a good thing. But I think for me, if we can put together a semblance of a squad that's going to at least finish kind of mid-table upwards for next season, I think that needs to be the goal, depending on what kind of happens. If we lose the players that we think we're going to lose, it's going to be a slog.
Absolutely. Go on, sorry, Nocky.
I think when you look at the teams that tend to bounce between the leagues, they're the teams that aren't actually very good, because they don't lose too many of their players when they get relegated. So you're looking at a Burnley, a Leeds. They tend to keep the bulk of their squad. They might lose the odd one or two, like you get Ipswich. They went down. They lost Liam Delap. They lost Amari Hutchison, but they kept the majority of those players because they weren't good enough to be pinched by the Premier League team. So they're probably just about too good for the Championship, but not quite good enough for the Premier League. When we came down and had the double dip, we had some really good players, and they got absolutely split from us straight away, and we put ourselves in a position where we just couldn't rebuild the squad in time. That's where I feel like we might be now, because we know that we have got some quality in that team, but we've also got players who will want to leave as well. So that João Gomes Andre are definitely going to want to go, despite what Andre seems to be saying. He'll be out the door. They'll already be having those conversations. Krejci's already making noises about wanting to go. But then your players like Tolu will want to go. I think Mane will want to go. Hugo will want to go. Santi Bueno, he's not going to want to play in the Championship because of, he'll feel he's better than that. So you put yourself in a dangerous position of keeping players who probably don't want to be there, because they're all going to end up taking pay cuts as well. So it's a huge rebuild just to be competitive. If we get it wrong, we're in a relegation battle. If we get it right, potentially first half of the season we can stabilise, and then maybe second half of the season you can try and push on towards the playoffs. That's realistic. But if we're still hanging around with some of these players that we're desperate to offload and they're desperate to leave, we go into pre-season with them, and I think we probably will, because we've got a World Cup to contend with. You're never going to get yourself in a position to challenge, because you'll get teams like Burnley who will absolutely hit the ground running because they know this league. They'll keep the bulk of their squad. They won't be decimated. Same with Spurs or West Ham, whoever comes down. Forget the financial problems that both of them will have. They're both big enough to spend money and risk it and be competitive, and they'll run away with the league. And then you're going to have whoever's left as well. You've got your Middlesbroughs, you've got Birmingham will be better, Wrexham will be better. So you're going into a league with real settled squads who understand and know this league, and you're asking yourself in the space of 3 months to offload probably 10 players at least, bring in 10 players, blood them and get them ready for a Championship season and a promotion push. It's just not going to happen, in my opinion.
I think the bigger issue as well is, like, we know obviously it's been a while now since we've been in the Championship, thank God. I've dreaded going back down there because we all know what an absolute shit of a league it can be. Players get kicked about all over the shop. We need players with Championship experience that are going to be able to do. We can't rely on people coming in that haven't got that championship experience. We were in a really fortunate position when, back in the Nuno days when we were getting some of those players off Mendes and we were getting those in, but they were quality players that were able to, really kind of blood themselves into the championship. The truth is, a lot of those players that are with us now, if they think that they've got it bad at Leeds away on a Saturday in the sunshine, they've got another thing coming when they go to some of the grounds in the championship, if they're still there.
Yeah, it's a massive concern, but doesn't this speak volumes of the work that needs to be done to gain the trust back? Because if 65% of fans think we're more likely to be in a relegation battle than promotion, when in reality, Wolves will probably be one of the top two most financially powerful clubs next season, with the parachute money, with offloading Andre and João Gomez and Krejci, maybe Mane. There's a lot of money coming in, and with that parachute money, if spent correctly, Wolves should be a player. So doesn't it speak volumes for how little trust there still is? Now, what I want to say, before I'm completely all negative, I just want to praise the ticketing side of things. The season tickets, I think, is very, very fair. The prices have come down to make Wolves like a top six competitive, and I can accept that because that's where I expect to be in the league next year. And also the kids' pricing, where I know this has really affected you in a positive way, Nocky, for your lad. So credit to Wolves and the ticketing team. Actions speak louder than words. We were told about it. They've done it. Nod. Yes, that deserves some credit. And I had to drop them there because it was negative. But what I wanted to say was, Nui, don't we have to build some bridges still? Well, the club have to build some bridges in terms of trust. Because if 65% of fans, granted, this is only a very small margin in terms of a small number in terms of the survey, but this speaks volumes of the lack of trust, when in reality, Wolves should be a massive player next season. But when people are more concerned about relegation than promotion, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really surprise me that this is kind of the way that people are feeling and the way that it is. I think Wolves fans generally, myself included, are quite kind of pessimistic rather than optimistic. And I think with the way that things are at the moment, it's not necessarily been it's not been great for any of us for a number of reasons. I think there's a lot that's obviously happened internally at Molineux. A lot of those fans have been priced out, which must mean meant that the atmosphere has kind of gone down. The football has obviously declined. The people aren't necessarily going to be that bothered to kind of get up and go to games. And fair play to everybody that's still going to away games and kind of putting the hard yards in, really. I was actually given a list yesterday by the missus, and I quite happily took that list to kind of hopefully not even have to watch the game, but I managed to clear off that list before the game, unfortunately. So I ended up watching it. But fair play to those fans that are still kind of putting in those hard yards and wanting to see us do well. And I really, really hope that behind the scenes there is a lot of work that's going on. But you are right, that to see that 65% think that we're just going to kind of go down and then go down again without a fight says a lot about everything that's happened over the last few seasons. We've been worn down by a lot of the stuff that's gone on, and a lot of it rightly falls at Fosun's feet, at Jeff's feet, and it looks like they are starting to kind of rebuild some of those relationships. And fair play, like you said, for the ticketing stuff. I think that's a real positive in what has been some terrible decisions that have been made over the last kind of couple of seasons. So I think that is something that we do need to applaud them for. And obviously, I think come tomorrow night, if West Ham do get a result, I think that's when we'll see the kind of ticket pricing officially kind of announced. But am I optimistic about next season? Not really, but that's the Wolves fan in me.
Yeah, it's more of a case now. I just want this season over. That's not me looking forward to the Championship. And me and Nocky have been mates best part of 30 years. We've had some of our best days trundling up to Preston with a giant French Francie in the back and coming home after a Chris Alumu hat-trick and all that kind of nonsense. We've had some fantastic days. But as you said perfectly well then, Nui, we're drained, we're worn down. It feels like a member of the family has been treated badly, and we've just looked on and watched until obviously you led and did something, and we followed, and now hopefully that's for the better. Anyway, less of that survey. This is episode 162 of the Wolves Report with Kieran Newey, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. Knocky, let's move on to some questions, and have I got some questions for you, Knocky? Guess which one you're going to get. Let's find. Here we go. So, Greg Hickman, Nick Anderson, and Martin all raising questions and concerns about Rob Edwards. Mark Knock.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of covered it. I've tried to be balanced when I talk about Rob. On last week's podcast, I said I think he probably needs to go, and that's not just driven on results. That's driven on the fact that he splits the fan base more than probably any manager I've ever seen who's had such a short tenure. We have to be aligned next season. We have to be on the same page, and if we're not, it's just not going to work. So for me, I don't see the fans ever accepting him. As I said, if we won 6 in a row and lost the 7th, the only focus will be on that 7th because people have kind of made their mind up about him. I was on the fence, and I have backed him. And when we had that good run of form, I felt, yeah, he's the right man for it. But the last 2 results have swung it for me. I've lost the trust in him now. And the comments after the games that I'm seeing, his reluctance, to be honest, and some of the stuff that he said has kind of swayed me now. I don't think he's the right man for us.
It's, for me, the biggest thing after the games, Newey, is accountability. And I know we say we're going over old ground because we talked about this earlier on, but just take responsibility. It didn't work. I thought I'd try the same as last week. It didn't work, and that's on me. That's all I need to hear. It might not change my mind, but at least I know that you've seen what we've all seen, and you've only got to look at that away end. I mean, I wanted to put the video on the show, but I couldn't put the video on the show because you're only allowed 2 swears in a PG. So unfortunately, we couldn't put that on, but there are some real concerns.
I just think that the main thing is, again, and we said this during our meeting with like the board and with Nathan, we don't mind hearing bad news. Like, we'd rather hear the truth about what's going on, and we can stomach it. We're big and ugly enough, and we've been through enough to kind of take it. So just take it on the chin, Rob. Just like put it out there. Wolves fans would respect you so much more if you came out and just went, we were terrible. They weren't where we needed to be. They weren't at it. It's under my control to be able to sort that out and ask the questions. I don't understand why that is. We've had a good week in training, blah blah. Whatever it is, just come out and say that. But for him to come out and go, it was okay, and I'm like,
oh man,
yeah, like not good enough for me. And I think once a manager starts doing that, unfortunately, the writing's on the wall.
Well, this is it. Okay, we mentioned this earlier as well, but going a little bit deeper, are those making the decisions at Wolves aware of this? Will they care what the fans think? And can they afford to get it wrong? Because in reality, we should be spending, with the players sold, a lot of money this window. We're going to have to replace all the players that are going. This is a big window. Everyone needs to be aligned. And like you said, Knocky, if it's a bad start to the season, yeah, already you've got tensions and you're only in September. You don't need that. You need everyone aligned. Now, these last 2 games for me have been a disgrace. Am I forgetting the games before that? No. There was some heart and there was some effort, and there's a bit of snot and a bit of grit, and we ground out a couple of wins and we had 1 brilliant derby win. But other than that, before that, though, it's been pretty poor. So has he got Wolves fitter? Yes. Did he have Wolves a little bit more organised? Yes. He had 4 weeks of training and they look a completely different side. So I want Rob to do well. I want him to succeed. I can understand now why people don't trust him. Yes, it's not his squad, it's not his team. But look at the comments in here. Look on social media. Now, social media doesn't speak for everybody, but lots of people have one social media account, whether it's Facebook, whether on YouTube, whether on X. Lots of people talk. The vibe is not good. I mean, I don't want to put a survey out on Rob until the end of the season. I think that's a little bit disrespectful. But what would it say now, Knocky, on him? You look at the comments coming through.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. Fans didn't want him, did they? And you've got a massive problem if you bring in a manager that half your fan base doesn't seem to want, because it's very, very difficult to take to that manager when you were determined that you didn't want him in the first place. I was always on the fence, although I did defend him because I felt that this wasn't an issue of his making. He walked into a situation and he was brave to take it, and he wanted to do a good job for us. And I was relatively comfortable in watching how we progressed under him. I felt that there was improvements. We went from a team that was going to smash Derby's record to a team that comfortably got past that. And we looked like we were running more, like we had a little bit better shape about us. We looked more competitive. We started picking up some positive results. So I was okay with it. But the collapse now is just to regress to the point where we're as bad as anything we've been all season when we only had 2 points in November. That's a massive situation to find yourself in. And as for are the club aware of it, absolutely they'll be aware of it. And one thing they have done to a point is listen to us. We had the protest about Jeff Shee, and then Jeff Shee was gone the next week. We had the complaints about the season ticket prices and the rumours of what that could be. They've come out and dropped 25% off it. So I do think they still have the interest in the club to want to do well and to want to keep people on side. So I think they'll absolutely be listening to this. The acid test is going to be, will they do it? And if they do, have you got faith in them to bring in the right man? Because history tells us they don't really know how to recruit a manager. They get lucky. They got lucky with Nuno. They did well with Lopetegui, I'd say, although they didn't back him and we ended up losing him. Other than that, most of the managerial appointments have failed. And I know that Vitor Pereira worked for that half of the season, but then we talk about Jeff putting us in this position. He's got blood on his hands because he was the architect behind these signings we brought in. So the majority of our managerial appointments under Fosun have absolutely failed. The long-term ones are the ones like your Nuno's who did work for us, but I don't trust them to get it right anyway. So is it the better the devil you know, or is it a case of let's just give it another go and see if we can bring in someone and hope it works again? I just don't know. But I think based on the fact that I want everybody together aligned, I want Molyneux to be loud, spiteful and horrible next season. I don't think we do that under Rob Edwards because I think people have already decided he's not the right man for the job. And after the last two performances, I can't argue with that.
Great stuff from Nui and Noki. Some really good points and comments coming through I want to share. Rick says, Tom, it's 3 wins in 23. Shocking. I don't know who Tom is, but evening, Tom. Also, Wolves Rouge says Rui Pedro Silva should be our next manager. Obviously, he's sat in the passenger seat, hasn't he? And got some history behind that previously. Let's have a little look. Also, Rusko says 14% win ratio shows that Edwards is definitely not going to take us forward. A decent coach would have got much more out of these players. I've got to be honest, I'm surprised it's 14%. I thought it was way lower than that. I don't know if that's built in with something else, Rusko. I don't know. But, I mean, it doesn't say a lot, is it, when I think 14% high? So it doesn't say a lot when I'm surprised with that. Shout out from Paul that says Thomas Frank, but would he come here? I would love Thomas Frank. If you want absolute housery, he's your man. I mean, it's horrible, but yeah, I would love him, but I don't see that. And I mean, heaven forbid Wolves do an XG based recruitment policy. You know, I'd love that. Knock it, that'd be the finishing of you, wouldn't it? Anyway, Greg, Nick, and Martin, thank you for making Noki angry. Kev, this is one for you, Nui. Kev Taylor says, "Do we need a change of ownership?" Kieran Nui.
Yeah, 100%. We've needed it for a while. I've got no trust in Fosun. I haven't had any trust in Fosun for a while. Are they starting to kind of rebuild that? Yeah. Do I believe that Nathan is the right person for the job? Probably not. But you know, he's got a lot to prove, and Fosun have got a lot to prove. You know, they've started to show some signs of life. Easy for me to say. You know, in trying to rebuild those relationships, but I just do not trust Fosun in the slightest over everything that's gone on over the last few years, over some of the decisions that are still being made, over the appointment of Jeff as director at a company that's, you know, has a lot to do with Wolves. It all just smells really, really fishy, and I don't like it. And you know, I think the biggest insult for me in all of this, and the reason that I'm so kind of het up and angry about the recent, you know, kind of tweet about FC Sportswear and retail, is because that guy does not deserve to have a single ounce to do with Wolverhampton Wanderers. He's had his chance. He messed it up. He made an absolute pig's ear out of it, and we're paying the price for that now by going down to the Championship. Yet he's ultimately given what some could argue as a promotion to being a director of a football kit manufacturer and being Fosun Sports UK. So yeah, I mean, let's not get me all too angry again on a Sunday night, but yeah, Fosun for me have got a lot to prove, and they haven't done a great job of it over the last couple of seasons. We're paying the price of it now. So yeah, long answer, but yeah, we need new ownership.
Kev, thanks for your question. Kieran, I'll put you down as a maybe. This is one for you, Nocky, as well, to finally blow the final gasket. Wayne says, how many of his current squad would you like to see in a Wolves shirt next season? Turn away from your screen, Wayne. Turn away from your screens now, Mr. Mark Knock.
Adam Armstrong, you can bin the rest off. It depends how you look at it, doesn't it? I mean, if we were to keep Andre and Gomez and they wanted to be here, and we kept Tolo and those players, you'd expect us, with the extra additions we can put in, that we'd probably be okay. But those players don't want to be here. They don't want to be here now, so there's no chance they'll want to be here when we're in the Championship next season. I'd like to see a full rebuild. I'll keep Armstrong because I like him. I like Mane, but I think the money we could get for him, which is all really just free money based on the fact that I know we pinched him, but he came through our youth system to a point. I don't think we can afford to keep him if we're going to get big offers for him. I like Tolu, but again, I don't think he's going to want to play at this level either. So for me, I'd keep Adam Armstrong. I'm genuinely not bothered who else goes, to be completely honest. Whatever we do, I want it done quickly. I want it done as quickly as we can when the season's over. We've been relegated since probably October, so we should have already been having these conversations. We should know what everybody wants. We should be identifying targets. So I want to see it happen quickly. I don't think it will, but I'd like to see it happen quickly. But in terms of the squad, Armstrong, the rest can go.
Now, not to put any additional pressure on, but with Wolves' predicament, and we all knew where Wolves were probably December, there is not a single excuse, not a World Cup, not an awkward player, not a kick-off in the dressing room, not a Nui tantrum, not a Nocky camera falling over, nothing. There is not a single excuse for Wolverhampton Wanderers not getting their business done early and done correctly and being set up. Yes, it's going to take a while to blood in the majority of a new squad. As you said there, we have had the head start of any team in League One, of any team in the Championship, and we've known our fate. Come next season, we've had a 6-month start on everyone else. There is no excuse. I don't want to hear about a World Cup. I don't want to hear about agents, right? You've had a head start on everyone else. You told us you're a big player. Get it right, Nocky. But
it's not the incomings, it's the outgoings that are the problem, because we're going to want the most amount of money that we can squeeze out of that. When you look at the Matthias Cunha signing, we got him a new contract because we decided that was the fee we were willing to take for him. So we kind of were doing that deal at the time. That's what we wanted to accept. We're going to want to squeeze as much out of this as we can, which is where my nervousness comes in around how we're going to get these players out the door in time. I think we hang on to the majority of these till after the World Cup. I really do, because I think they're going to want the most amount of money they can get for these players, and that'll probably affect the incoming as well. That's why I don't think we'll be challenging next season, because we'll be so desperate to get the most amount of money we can for these players that we'll hold on for as long as we can, which from a business sense, yeah, that's the right thing to do, get as much as you can. But from a football sense, whoever the new manager is, I want us to be able to hand him a full squad of players for pre-season. So there you go. You've got a month and a half to blood these players in. Then we hit the ground running at Preston away or Lincoln away, whoever it is. That's what I want to be able to do. They're not going to do that, because we're going to go into pre-season with at least 7 of the players I want out the door still in the club, because we're going to want to negotiate those deals, and that's where my nervousness comes in.
Interesting as well, with the recent agent fees released, how much Mr. Mendes will be involved in helping Wolves get rid of some of these players. Wayne, thank you for your question. This is episode 162 of the Wolves Report. Kieran Newey, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. We're almost at the end of the show, an hour and 9 minutes in. The boys are on double time overtime. It's going to bankrupt the Wolves Report this summer. Who cares? We're in the Championship. Next Saturday afternoon, Wolves could be relegated at Molineux. It might sound perverse of me, but I hope West Ham get a point and get it over and done with. I do not want to get relegated at Molineux. because it will be horrible. I don't think it'll be fun anyway. But what I would say is, if Wolves are confirmed relegated that day, gents, I just think I think the club will get a kindly reminder of how the fans feel. You could look at that as a positive or that, but I don't want that. We're past that. I don't think we need that. Some people may want that. That's not for me. I just want to go to a game of football that I've paid for, unfortunately, and get it over and done with. But anyway, Wolverhampton Wanderers face Tottenham Hotspur next week. Nui, it's impossible to pick the team, but knowing Rob, I reckon it'll be the same 11 again.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, and obviously reading some of the reports about Tolu, it's not looking great. You can obviously read into that yourselves, but it doesn't sound like he was a happy bunny last week, and he's obviously took that out on Mane. So that might be the last that we've seen of Tolu. But yeah, to be honest, like it's a bit of a chore watching football and going to the games at the moment. Next Saturday will be exactly the same, and actually, if there is still relegation on the line, I'm really hoping that West Ham just get it done with tomorrow.
I think we're united on that. The club want that. Fans want that.
Yeah.
I don't know, Nocky, do you want to throw your seat at someone, or are you past that now?
No, I wanted it done. I was annoyed when Brighton got that equaliser yesterday. I wanted it done and dusted, because I don't want to get relegated by getting beat by Spurs. I mean, Spurs haven't won a game this year, have they?
Yeah, we all know what's coming.
Absolutely nailed on for them to come and beat us. Yeah, I'm with you. I want to be relegated before we get there.
There's no point picking the team. There's absolutely no idea, but there's no way I'm going past the bongos. Nocky, your prediction and first scorer, please. Best bit of the show.
3-0 Spurs. Pedro Porro with a goal. I don't think we'll win another game. I really don't. I don't think we're going to win another one now.
If we've been dick for 70 against two teams, we made West Ham look good. We made Leeds. I think Leeds are better than their position, to be honest. They beat Man U. They beat us comfortably. But Spurs, I thought, were probably unlucky against Brighton. But Nui, no one's laughing at the bongo anymore. It's that bad. Right? No one cares. That used to be the best bit of the show.
It was.
It was.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3 or 4-0 again, to be honest. I don't care who scores.
3 or 4-0, I don't care.
I do think, though, if we are relegated, I do think Molineux has a duty to really let the players, the club and the owner know what we think of it, because there's nothing else on the line now. And they've had a very, very easy ride. So I hope Molineux gives them a little bit back.
They will do. And the apathy recently, it's just like, we're lucky we've got this, because it's like, it's group therapy. We're talking about it, laughing at ourselves, working with Nui and the guys on a project. We're still doing things. It's so miserable, but luckily we can laugh at ourselves on here and hopefully complete a massive project. My score,
where's the bongos?
Do I have to get bongos? Have I got a bongos as well?
You got a bongo yourself.
That's none of your business. 1-0 Wolves, Toty, and you deserve that for making me do it.
Toty Gomez.
That's your captain next season. I don't mean it. This has been episode 162 of the Wolves Report. Nui, thank you so much for giving up your Sunday evening. Nocky, as always, thank you. Almost completing the season. We'll be joining you again next week when Wolverhampton Wanderers are relegated. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Up the Wolves.